Next, I would like to welcome to the stage Satya Tripathi, Secretary General of the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet and former United Nations Assistant Secretary General. Welcome.
Thank you, Joanne. Let me start by presenting a sobering thought. This is not the first true cost accounting exercise that humanity has undertaken. There's another one that plays out pretty much all over the planet right now. That's climate change. The first time someone told us that global warming through greenhouse gases is a distinct possibility was Eunice Foote in 1856. 40 years later, somebody quantified through the hypothetical doubling of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere was 1896, was Arrhenius. And then, of course, there's David Charles Keeling, and then it goes on. And then in the mid-80s, Exxon, with tremendous skill and accuracy, predicted that fossil fuels are going to destroy the planet. And they spent the next 40 years now actually debunking their own research. So if you feel disheartened for any reason that we have not made enough progress, that TCA hasn't gone as far as it ought to or should have, there's much to take hope from the other process. And there is true cost accounting happening there, true cost to humanity, true cost to the living, breathing planetary ecosystems, and how everything is collapsing around us with alarming intensity and accuracy of data, from the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii to the 421 parts per million carbon concentration in the atmosphere, to the IPCC reports, to the UNEP emissions gap report and the adaptation gap report, all the stuff. So we are literally a tiny drop in the ocean in that sense, compared to what's happening on the other side of the aisle. So there's much to be happy about that. And in this, I would like to thank Jen and the entire team. I have attended thousands of these meetings. And if you're working for the UN, especially as an Assistant Secretary General in New York, you are in 10 meetings every day. And that's an understatement. From the Security Council to different chambers, that's life. I haven't seen one meeting where pretty much everybody is still in the room at the end of day 2. So hats off to all of you. You're true believers and you deserve every compliment that comes your way. That's what I wanted to start by saying, that what we have achieved is extraordinary, given the kind of people that have gathered around, a shared belief that true cost accounting for the food systems matters. Of course, there have been metrics and that have been used in the past as well on different tangents, whether you talk about sustainability, you talk about water use intensity. We know that if you're growing rice in an acre of land, the most conservative estimate is you use 500,000 liters for a crop cycle. We know that, and we know that for pretty much every crop. And so this is bringing things together, looking at the best of science there is, and bringing it together so that we can really use something that is commonly accepted to quantify what is the real cost of our food systems. That's the first part I wanted to share with you. The second is that let us not be lost in translation. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that when you talk the numbers, Andhra Pradesh Natural Farming Program has been talked about a lot over the last 2 days. I first went there in 2017, 31st of July. I remember the day because it was a life-altering moment. And I met Vijay Kumar. It was a tiny program at that time. And we plotted a few things. This takes nothing away from the fact that it is an extraordinary team led by an extraordinary pioneer. But you need strategy. Even Andhra Pradesh Natural Farming Program, it got from where it was back in 2017 to the world's largest agroecology-based farming program in 2025 because of strategic thinking. It has survived government's change. It has survived all kinds of challenges that would come along because you're fighting a very powerful lobby of fertilizer companies and pesticide companies, because you're proving actually that it is possible. You're not debunking the theory that without chemical fertilizers and pesticides, we're all dead, we'll all starve to death. That's what is peddled normally. The ambassador was just talking. I was in Wageningen University. We're trying to work with them to see how we can build a state-of-the-art university in Andhra Pradesh focused on natural farming. And so when the rector took me around and he showed the kind of research that is happening, it's extraordinary. It is not the world's best university on many things, and including regenerative agriculture, for nothing. And it is because that it's not just that they believe in something that they're doing, but they have proved the commercial value of what they're doing. And that's why Andhra Pradesh natural farming works. It doesn't work because there's a great team that speaks from loudspeakers and basically telling everybody, oh, this is awesome, you should all do it. It works because yields have gone up. It works because the income of farmers have gone up 50%. The study that was released last year with kind support from the Global Alliance for the Future of Food. And it works because the evidence is staring you on your face. There are 1 million farms where you can actually see the evidence. It's not happening in some closed rooms or some patent-protected research. And so that's what we thought of when I was talking to Vijay back in 2017, when we went and met the chief minister with a room full of top minds from the world, including Pawan Sukhdev. Pawan is not here, but he was one of the people that we went and met the then chief minister. And basically, we presented to him a dream that you could become the world's #1 destination for clean food. And how have they succeeded? It's amazing. But what we focused on was that while the science must happen, that all research, some of the best universities have come along. Rodell Institute, some University of Sussex, University of Wageningen, and many other universities in Terry, and different Indian institutes of technology. There's a lot of research to show what's going on. But most importantly, it works because people are saying it works. And from one crop cycle to the next and to the next. And mind you, when we gather in these hallowed chambers and we talk about risk and how we manage risk, how we mitigate risk, it's been talked a lot over the last 2 days, right? These farmers, their resilience is this little. What they produce in a crop cycle decides whether their families will eat, whether their children will go to school, and they are willing to take that risk. They are willing to change. And so that's why the evidence is so compelling. And then lastly, money. Money is extremely important. We've talked about it over the last 2 days. How do you find resources? So I think the answer is very simple. And I'll go back to the Andhra Pradesh example and also an example in Indonesia that we orchestrated in 2017, in 2016 actually. We set up something called the Tropical Landscape Finance Facility. And that would then, within 6 months, go on to produce the world's largest private investment in protecting a forest, $400 million. A partnership between BNP Paribas, Michelin, and of course, UNEP and World Agroforestry Center and everybody else. And what did we do? We were not looking at a format. Because when you're looking at that, you're trying to fit to the form all the time. We said, this is possible, and people have to be at the heart of this arrangement. Let's work together. And we started working. We must have had close to 7,000 meetings in those years. It was almost 11 months it took us to construct the whole thing. And we managed to go to the Singapore capital markets and raise the first tranche, $95 million, to protect a forest 6 times the size of Singapore, a 400,000 hectare forest. And the cost of borrowing was below the sovereign borrowing cost of the country Indonesia, with no sovereign guarantees, with no sovereign money, with no collateral. That's what happens when people come together. It was mentioned yesterday that when you have a room full of champions drawn from different parts of the ecosystem, it certainly looks like the risk is manageable. People stop talking about numbers. It is the credibility of the people in the room that gives you that confidence. And that's how the money was raised. It was a blended instrument. Moody's gave it a AAA rating. There was a Dutch fund as well invested, and Green Fund put in $22 million. It was a 15-year bond. And it was retired in 5 years. Everybody got paid because Michelin started getting cash flows. They said, we really don't need this anymore. Something that was considered impossible in 2016 suddenly become not only possible, but worth celebrating. And now it's the kind of go-to model. Everybody that wants to do something, they use it. We put everything in the public domain. The second was the experience in Andhra Pradesh with the funding. Two things very important to note. The first was that we went around talking to 15-odd DFIs and bilateral donors, and everybody basically said, agriculture, not our thing. It's too risky. You are too early in the process, and come back to us when you make some progress. And 3 years later, KFW actually came back. Instead of we going back, they came back and said, now you're at 300,000 farmers. We really want to be a part of this. And they signed an agreement to put up 210 million euros, of which 100 million euros have already been disbursed. And they put up that money at 0.45% coupon, which is unheard of. And how will the money get paid back? Is that we did some research on how fertilizer subsidies are getting avoided by adopting natural farming because it is zero fertilizers. India's fertilizer bill, subsidy bill last year was $33 billion. So now the national government has a policy in place, and thanks to the work in Andhra Pradesh and the advocacy, that whatever you save as compared to the last 3 years running average, 50% of that fertilizer subsidy saving will be plowed back to the state government as an incentive to do more of natural farming. So technically, all the money that KFW has deployed will go back without any cost to the state government. And now we are working on creating another $1 billion instrument, and we're talking to a lot of partners. So let me close by saying this. Things work because you have passion, you believe in something, and you build an army of collaborators. To the extent we can do that, this will go very far. So let me close with 3 quick thoughts. The first is the International Organization for Standardization, ISO. ISO does not give a single certificate to anybody, but it is the standard that every corporate in the world showcases as their strength, as a standard they comply with. It's done by third-party auditors, all of it. ISO doesn't give a single certificate to anybody. Can TCA be the go-to standard for food systems so that people know, okay, this has a TCA score? And how to do it? Of course, the experts are in the room, I'm sure. And this is what Salman mentioned yesterday, that you can't be spending a few $1 million for every country analysis you do. There is simply not that kind of donor money available. The second thing is that Churchill famously said that time's up, I'm paraphrasing, of course, for procrastination, of half measures, of baffling, soothing, and baffling expedients. Because soothing and baffling because they contradict each other. We have entered a time of consequences. He was, of course, talking about Second World War. This is much worse, 1,000 times worse for humanity, for every species, each of the 8 million species we've identified thus far. So we are in a period of consequences. And as Mark Twain famously said, that in 20 years hence, your regret will not be what you did and didn't succeed, but what you didn't do. So let us be brave. Let us Each one in this room, and of course, I hope others hear it too, has the ability to make change happen in every possible way, in a conversation, reaching out to people, talking to people, holding hands of people that have the ability but not the courage to move forward. So let us do everything in our power to move the needle forward, because history demands no less. Thank you so much.